And we are good. Hello. Welcome back to the Tangent Podcast. My camera is unfocused. Wonderful. You can see Ejon's vibing over there. We're back after, almost a year? It's been a while.
Yeah.
Since June, July of last year? Something like that?
Yeah. I've been sleepy the whole year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Man, the final half of last year was crazy. But, I forgot to put the music on. I'm so rusty.
Wow.
Wait, let me turn it down.
You're fired.
I know, fire me. I'm so bad at this. No, it can't be on an odd number. That's unlucky. No, it can't be on 5. It's got to be on 4. No, I can't get it.
What are you trying to do?
The volume of the jukebox.
Oh,
okay. 8. It'll be on 8.
Yeah, okay.
That's fine. Okay, hi, welcome back to Tangent Podcast. It's been a long time. We've been busy. Graduating college, getting jobs, adulting, things like that.
Yeah.
It's been wild. We have a lot to talk about. But one thing you should know at the beginning is that we're going to try to do the podcast more often. But to do that, because we're, busy being adults and living our lives, we'll be doing shorter podcasts instead of the 3-hour stuff we did before. We'll be doing 45 minutes to an hour and a half usually, depending on how much we have to talk about. So, yeah, they will be shorter, but they'll be more often, hopefully.
Yeah. Because if we're doing live streams or quick to record and post, we should be fine.
Yeah. I mean, this doesn't take much setup. We just gotta set up OBS, get the jukebox open, and set our backgrounds up. But you can see, look, my hands might disappear. What? No! Disappear! Watch this.
Oh. Whoa!
I went behind my mic, which it fell. Whoa, it moved. Anyhow, welcome back to Tangent Podcast. Man, it's been so long. So much has happened. Last time we did it, we were both in senior year still of college.
I believe so.
It feels like forever ago. Were you graduated? I think you had recently graduated.
Yeah, I think that was
right after you graduated. Yeah.
Yeah, it was 2021 spring, May. I believe.
The last one was called Dawn of Summer, so I assume it was June.
Yeah, probably late May, June. I think.
Yeah.
Honestly, I forgot. It
feels like 10 years ago. Honestly, it feels like so long.
No, I feel like that summer feels closer to me, but the actual idea of school feels longer to me.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's saying something considering I've been a sub for a while. So.
Wow. I don't think about it. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but that feels like a while ago to me, anyways. But yeah, college. Whew, graduated from that. I graduated in August.
Fall?
Yeah, it was the end of the summer semester. So.
That's right.
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed my graduation. It was a really big moment because school is basically over, and now I get to go live my life, and it was a really interesting day, man. I'm really happy I got to actually do my graduation in person because the spring semester before me, because of COVID, could not. But they let the summer semester because it was smaller. But man, after that, I went and became a sub and passed my exams to be a teacher, and then I'm in the system, and I'm like, damn, I don't like where public education is right now. It just feels really broken. And all the teachers I've been talking to were like, you're so young, don't get into it, it'll ruin your life. And I'm like, no, it can't be that bad. And then I subbed for 2 months, and I was like, holy shit, it's that bad. It's just not in a good place right now. And I went back and talked to some of our former teachers. I don't know if I want to say his name. I don't know if he wants to be mentioned. But we were in senior men with him.
Right.
Were you in senior men?
Oh, I was with you. Remember the whole we made someone...
Yes, that's my most distinctive... That and doing the project in a torrential rainstorm are all I remember from senior men. But yeah, I do, yeah. Man,
$26, a movie ticket, and hot sauce.
And then I remember after it was all over, we went to that Chinese buffet, nobody showed up.
Oh yeah, you're right.
It was 6 people, and we all was oh, okay. We ate our food. It's well, that's it. That was pretty funny, honestly. What's it called? But yeah, I was a sub for a while, and then I was like, you know what? I'm going to use my business degree. So I decided, because I like working with people, want to try getting into HR because I like working with people. So I tried finding a job for that, but it's really hard with no experience. So I am a recruiter right now for a medical firm. Medical recruiter working with traveling nurses and COVID testing sites and everything. It's hard work, but it pays well. Like, I earn $40K a year, and this is a starting position. And I get 10% commission. So if a nurse gets, say for a 13-week contract, a nurse in like LA might earn like $40K total, I'd get 10% of the profit, which means I'd get like a couple $1,000s for one nurse. Mind you, if the nurse is fast with me, I could get like multiple nurses a day. So that could add up, and that could make me a lot of money. And I don't get the commission instantly. I get it over the weeks they're working, but that's still like $300 a week per nurse. That's a lot. So yeah, I'll probably work here for a while, like, I don't know, a year or two, and then go find something else, you know? So but yeah, I mean, eventually I still have my long-term goal of being a professor and going back into education, because I know it's like a Leviathan beast that's kind of like dying, but I'm drawn to it.
So I have a question. Why do you say dying? That's the thing that I'm curious
about. Man, you kind of have to be in the system to know why. Like, from the outside, it looks broken, but you really have to go inside to see what it's like. But I'd say it's a lot multiple factors. One of them is the students. Since COVID, the students have been getting so much worse, just because they have like 2 years not in the classroom where they forget all of their manners, they forget all of everything, and having cell phones. Like, I know we had cell phones when you were in high school, but we didn't have like TikTok and like all these modern apps. We had like Facebook and like Twitter and early Instagram, which wasn't as bad.
I'm gonna have to push back. I mean, like, it depends which type of students you're talking about. Do you mean like middle school or high school students?
Both.
Which one
Both. Middle schoolers are.
We had that in high school.
Yeah, but the high schoolers are different. Maybe it's because I'm old. I don't know. I feel old around those kids. But it's just they feel different, you know? And I mean, you have the good kids, of course, but there's also always, like, one thing I learned as a sub, when the kids walk in, you can always tell who the troublemaker is just by how they carry themselves. And I really prefer girl troublemakers because they'll just be loud and they'll be annoying. Guy troublemakers will break shit, and they will get into fights, and I will have to stop fights, and it's not fun.
Getting physical.
But
that's not fun.
Another one is the teachers themselves. Like, the teachers are so jaded and broken and underpaid that they just don't give a shit, honestly. I mean, there's a few who are willing to sacrifice themselves, but those mostly the young ones who are still idealistic. But
they still have the hope and the drive in them. That
you would not believe the amount of cynicism and like 20 plus years of jaded experience that our the senior men teacher said to me. He went on for like 30 minutes. It was crazy the amount he had to say. And I think thirdly, it's just that, like, you see the stuff with like CRT and all that. People just it's like the satanic panic of the 90s, you know? They're trying to find any way to push back against progressive things and be like, oh, this is bad. Oh, teaching MLK, that's bad. You know, whatever, you know? And like, there's a bill in like Tennessee where like they can put cameras in the classrooms and watch like the teachers and students. It's
I don't get it.
Yeah,
like,
it's
how's that going to help anything? It's like, hey, we heard that people don't like surveillance, so we decided to add surveillance when you're the most awkward, stupid, and also mentally deprived time of your life.
And plus, it's just not even really legal. Like, you can't record kids, you know, without a parent's consent.
Well, just they don't have to think about it.
Just go around it. Yeah, just make a new law.
Just make a new law and then just make people like agree by just existing. And like, isn't that essentially what terms of service is?
Yeah, like, it's like, well, what are you gonna do? Go somewhere else?
Yeah.
Yeah, man. But it's just like, it's hard to describe what it's like, but it's just this. When you're working at a school in a teaching role, it feels like you're on a sinking ship, and it's really hard to describe that feeling to someone else that it's sounding kind of like bullshit, you know? Yeah, it's just not in a good place, and apparently hasn't been in a good place for 20 years if these teachers are to be believed. So, I do have to say, though, some of my favorite classes were working with special ed kids. Like,
Really?
I took some at two different schools. One was an elementary, one was a high school. The special ed elementary school, I didn't know how to change diapers because I was working with preschoolers. So thankfully there are other people there who did know how to do that. But those kids were wild, like little 4-year-olds with like these mental disabilities, and it's like, oh, you've got Down syndrome. You're just a little kid though, so that doesn't really matter much. You're just gonna wander around the room, pick up books. Like we had one kid who he had Down syndrome. He was the only one in the class. The other kids had like other disabilities. But he went to the bookshelf in the back of the room with all the little kids' books on it. He would pick a book out, open it to a random page, go, ha! Close book, throw behind shoulder, continues for the entire bookshelf. There were like 20 books on that bookshelf. Man. We let him do it. We let him do it because otherwise he was going to be walking into walls or like going up to a kid and like pulling on their shirt. I don't know. I can't understand his mind. But other kids, like there was one with ADHD, so during nap time he didn't want to go to sleep, so I gave him some Play-Doh and he played with that for a while. That was fine. The kids were nice. You know, at that age you don't know how to be mean. Unlike middle
You're just
schoolers.
like a poo-poo head or whatever.
Yeah, or like when a kid's mean, you're like, no, say you're sorry, and they're like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Like, they get it, you know? Middle school was the worst. I only ever took one middle school job, and I regret it. Those kids were hell. Oh my god. They're like the worst of elementary and the worst of high school in one being. Oh. And then high school was fine enough. That came with a worksheet, just like, here's your work. I'm Mr. Kruger. Here's my. I had 4 rules for all my classes. Don't break anything. Don't kill anybody. Don't be too loud. Only one person is allowed outside of the room at a time. If they don't come back, nobody else can leave for the period. That one was important because if someone has to go to the bathroom and never comes back, that's bad.
Everyone hates them.
But with that, if they leave, their friends will be like, bro, what the hell? You didn't come back and, like, I wanted to go to the bathroom. They're like, oh, sorry, I just, like, was wandering around the halls. They're like, come on, man. It's social pressure, which is good, because teenagers are very social creatures. But then I did the disabled kids for high school, and this was mostly, like, autism, but really severe autism. Like, some were nonverbal. Like, it was that severe. And, like, they were good, but sometimes, like, I felt threatened. Like, they were, these were, some of these kids were seniors. They were, like, 17, 18 years old. And they were as big as me. And, like, like, height and size, you know? And, like, one of them comes over, and we have this little treat. Like how it works is, say they do good on an assignment. Like that day, it was around Thanksgiving, so we're learning about like Thanksgiving and its origins and everything. And if they did good on the lesson, we'd give them like a little fake plastic money, and it'd be like at the end of the week, you can pay your bills. So they take like half the money, and the other half is yours to buy treats with. You can buy candy or popcorn or stuff like that to encourage the kids to be good. But one of the kids comes over to where we exchange that for candy, and he just starts taking some. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. Put the candy back. And I take it from him, put it back, and he goes like, oh, man. And then he, like, because he's, like, mentally still, like, a little kid, he starts throwing a tantrum. But he's as big as me. So he throws a punch at me and hits me in the arm, and I kind of bruise up from the hit, and I get away from him because he keeps throwing the tantrum. And I go to the other person in the room who's been there, and I'm like, hey, he just, like, punched me really hard. What do we do about that? And she's like, oh, you just kind of get used to it.
But,
and it's like, oh, okay. That class was fine otherwise, though. They were great kids, you know? They liked me. They were all weird in their own way. Like that one kid who threw the tantrum, his favorite thing to do was to go up to people and go, hey, hi, hey, hi. And I'd be like, hello, name. And I didn't want to say his name. And he's like, and they go, and back away from you. He'd do that all day. He said almost no other words besides hey and hi. It's good otherwise, though. He did his work. But, yeah, those were fun days. Most days were pretty boring, but it's just not a good system right now, so... Recruiting's fine, though, but how about you? Has your job changed at all since last we did this?
Yeah, I would say, what was it? Last time we did this was...
Last summer.
Yeah, last summer. So before then, I didn't have an actual full-time job. Now I do. Big boy things, big boy bills, big boy stuff to do. So actually, I also work to a degree in education and government, just by like the products I work on support those functions. But I really don't think much of it. I just feel glad that, you know, in the end, my work is helping support you or people in like higher education as well.
Yeah.
So that's nice. But I guess I was just a little bit curious on what you had said, but I think it's more of like the lack of support and the overwhelming cynicism of education. The thing that you didn't tell me is exactly like why is it like I guess doomed or like it's just going to go away.
I think it's the lack of public support. Like people don't view teachers like how they did 100 years ago. You know, 100 years ago, teachers were like pillars of the community because they're educating the next generation and everything. But nowadays, teachers are just babysitters. Honestly, I mean that's all we're good for. They just
so like you're a commodity now.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. Well, like it's you know what's the old saying? Public goods are like not respected by all. Like if it's completely public, people don't respect it. You know, that's kind of how it feels.
Depends.
Yeah, that's not 100% true. It's just a saying. But I think parents these days, like, we're expected to teach manners. We're expected to teach economics. We're expected to teach everything. Health. We're expected to teach kids about sex and stuff, you know? We do everything a parent should be doing. And we don't have the time or money for it. Like, if me as a teacher, if I'm supposed to teach, I don't know, science, but I also have to devote, you know, a week or two to reproduction, like human reproduction, that's going to cut into everything else I do. And if I have to deal with kids who have bad home lives because their parents don't care, and I have to deal with it because that's expected of me, like the higher ups expect you, hey, build a relationship with literally every single student. You have 280 students, do it anyways. And it's just, we're such a public good without public support, it doesn't work. And that's why you get so many jaded and burned out teachers, like including me. You know, I got burned out from it being like, damn, this is not cool. One, because of the money, but also just because of the lack of support. People don't respect you. You know, like you'd hear from some people like, oh, when you can't do, teach. It's like, the hell, man. Like,
you know, I feel like it's also like a negative feedback loop because like the people that would care about teachers probably would like either move to a different area that has more respect for teachers or they would pay for themselves. So all you're left with are people who don't respect it, and then that just reinforces the behavior and the people that stay in that field because they're kind of like not even. I think the thing that I realize is that being a teacher is like I feel like to me it kind of feels like a trap. I'm looking at this as from the outside, mostly because like you take a bunch of people that will eventually just want and have the desire to teach, and I will exploit them if they haven't gotten the idea that they could do a better job privately teaching. But I will exploit them by making their wages really low or treating them like crap and making their career so limited in scope into a degree that it'd be really hard for them to make a pivot to a different career or a different area without it negatively affecting them or their finances to the point where they just can't escape. It's like you're just cuffed to that choice that you made earlier. Kind of like student loans.
Yeah, like every teacher I talk to, they're like, you're so young, you can still get out of it, but I'm like 44, I can't do anything else. Even though I know it's bad, I can't leave because I have kids. I have like a wife or a husband. Like I I have a family. I can't just go look for something else. You're like 22. You don't have much you have to care about right now. Think about if you want to do this for the rest of your life. Because it's such a commitment where when you're in it, you're not getting out. And like you said, there's no upward growth. And most people who get into the public school system go public because they want to help disadvantaged people and disadvantaged kids. Because they can earn so much more in the private field.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You could go work at a magnet school or at a Catholic school and earn way more. But you go private because you probably went to private. You go public because you went to public schools and you know the kids there need people like you, and you want to be the people, you know, help them out. But then you're stuck.
Yeah, and I feel like the thing is for me is I always see it that like eventually I want to get to the point where I can like give back to a degree. Maybe not like as a teaching sense, but I would want to give back in some material way to the organizations or just to the people that helped me get to where I am and helped you get to where you are. So because of that, I still feel that I feel compelled, but there doesn't seem to be like a good alternative that would work aside from like gaining a bunch of money and like putting it towards like a non-profit cause. Because going into it, maybe like, or volunteerism, like just volunteering on like the weekends or on my own time, but like actual working within it, like at a deeper level, seems hard. Like I even have like, you know, colleagues and people that I've met that were teachers for a very long time and family members, and it's just like it you go in, choose you, and then spits you right out. So I can't respect it as like I respect the people who go into it, but I don't respect, at least in this country, it as a career. Like it just seems like too far or too much for most people to.
You really have to be a martyr to be like a public teacher.
It's like a martyrdom, and I'm like, I don't want people to be martyrs to do the job of teaching, and I don't feel like we should treat it like that.
And it's not like this in other countries, you know.
Yeah,
like
I feel like, you know,
Go ahead.
I feel like it just comes as a result of like the priorities, because like, and I won't get too political, but like in this country, it's more about focus on like profit motives and like what will bring more return on investment. And while you could, like most people would argue, like if education is like learning is one of the best investments you could put into, I don't think that is like in the priority, because you can still make a lot of money off people not knowing things and just doing work or doing jobs that suck, but because they don't know any better, it works out for you.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the major problems with our education system is, unlike other countries, like even countries where I don't like their education system, like South Korea, for example, which really is a brutal system for the students. At least other countries update their systems. Our system is essentially the same as it was like 150 years ago when public school really started. Because, like, have you ever thought about bells and the bell system? It was originally made that way because in factory jobs, there would be bells for shifts. So you were being trained at school for the factory job, because that's what the schooling was for. Is to give you basic info so you can go work at the Ford plant. And you'll get conditioned to the bell because you've heard it your entire life. So you'll go and be like, oh, the bell that the shift for wheels is done, time to move over to the chassis. And the system is just meant to give you basic facts, not to make you learn, but just to memorize things so you know it. And move you along the line and make you the same cog in the machine as literally everyone else. Because, like, other countries don't do that. Like, one of the best educations in the world, which is Finland, you look at their system, and their system, I think it's either at the beginning of middle school or I think it's the beginning of high school. Up until high school, you're basically taught the basic facts, like here's how to read, here's how to write, here's Algebra 1, you know, basic stuff. But then into high school, you was like, okay, what do you like? What do you want to learn? And like, you know, you tell a 15-year-old that, they're like, oh, I want to do nothing, man. I want to go home. And they're like, oh, okay, go home. And they'll just let the kids hang out and play, but then after like a month, they'll be like, maybe I should actually learn something. And then the kids be like, well, Like, my uncle's a welder, and like I did that once. It's kind of cool. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. Go take that class. Go like apprentice under a welder for like a semester. And then the kid will be like, okay, I didn't like that, but I did like making things. And it's like, okay, do you want to go do like a woodshop class? I'm like, yeah, I'll try that. And they'll go learn things about things they want to do. Well, another kid might be like, yeah, I like math. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Do you like math for math's sake, or do you like doing things with math? If you like doing things with math, go be like a coder or something. If you like math for math's sake, go be a mathematician or something. And it's an independent learning thing where the kids get to choose. And that's so much better. Because I know I learn so much better when I give a shit about what I'm learning.
Like, it sounds like college where you don't have to care about getting enough credits to do something. It's like, that sounds ideal. And I know a friend who's gained like a non-disciplinary or interdisciplinary degree. Mm-hmm. So they get to choose whatever classes they want, and they still get like their degree. And now it's harder for them to market, but at the same time they get to do things that interest them, that they actually want to learn. And I thought like, wow, I wish I did that. But at the same time, I'm like, well, dang, how will I be able to market? Like, yeah, I did these classes.
But my degree is not in. I just kind of took it for like a couple semesters. Like, oh, okay, so you really didn't do it. It's like, no, I did, but like, it doesn't look the same, you know?
It doesn't look the same, but like, you could effectively get like 60, maybe 80%. Man, I need water. Of the curricula of maybe of someone who's
screen.
Okay. But yeah, you can get like most of the curricula, and you won't be able to get the advanced stuff, but you'll still get like a good amount, like lower to middle level. And after that, you can do your own independent study, make friends, and try to like learn what they're learning. But that's kind of interesting what you're saying. I wish it was more like that here, but I know for a fact it will never be.
No, not without some real change. Which I don't know if America likes the word change. Unfortunately. It's just we're so stuck in that system, people can't really think beyond it. Like, you say it to most people, and like most adults, and they'd be like, well, won't the kids just slack off and do nothing? And it's like, for a while, yeah, because they're kids. Yeah. But like, eventually they'd be like, damn, maybe I want to think about what I want to do in life.
Oh, yeah.
Because kids aren't actually that stupid. Like, yeah, they're stupid. They're really stupid. But they're not like babies. Like, they can actually think about things and try to think about, like, where am I going to be in 30 years? You know?
Yeah. I ask those same questions myself. Like, right now, I'm like, you know, oh, okay, so this is my life right now. I'm behind, like, three screens, and, like, I'm sitting or standing up most of the time. This doesn't sound healthy. I wonder if this is the right career choice sometimes. But I like what I do when I'm, like, really invested into it. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like I need to find something, or I need to figure this out, because 30 years of this is not going to look good.
Yeah, so same with my current job. Like, I'm a recruiter. There's the first mind break stutter of the new podcast. But like I have my phone here, my work phone, because my personal phone, I don't want people blowing up. I had a number and an extra phone, so it didn't cost me anything.
Just get 2 phones, get 2 numbers, one for work.
Yep,
one for.
That's what I do.
Yep.
Yeah.
You need 3 now. You need to get 3.
Yeah, but I just essentially make calls all day. Like, I've been staffing a COVID testing site in Reno for a while, so all people apply, be like, "Hey, this is Jeff Kruger from," I'm not going to say the company name. I'm reaching out to see if you're still interested in the COVID testing site. We're staffing in Reno. If you are, please give me a call back at, I say my number. Thanks, and have a great day. Hang up, send them a text message and an email with the same message, and then eventually someone comes back like, yeah, I'll take the job. And then I go through the whole process of, like, I do an online interview on Zoom, and then blah, blah, blah. And it feels great when I finally get the person the job, because a lot of these people are, like, desperate for work, especially the COVID testers, because it's, like, $15 an hour. It's, like, pretty low paying. But these are a lot of, like, people coming straight out of school, or, like, elderly people who need a little bit of extra money and everything, or people who have been unemployed for a while, and I get them the job, I'm like, thank you so much. Like, that feels great. You know, helping someone, you know, make money and survive. But at the same time, I'm like, I sit and look at a phone and a screen all day for 9 hours. Like, I don't want to be doing this when I'm old. So it's the same feeling you had.
I'm at this point where I'm kind of like, I probably should try to do something a little bit more tactile and, like, some of my hands. I'm like trying to get back into like fixing computers and stuff because it's like the one thing that actually involves me moving around. Because the truth of the matter is, I like there's days where I can just lay down in my bed and like just have my laptop, do some coding, read, and like go through messages, and I'm like, and I feel like my body feels like it's dead, even though I know I'm alive, and my mind just grows slow, to the point where I'm just kind of like, sometimes I'm just like laying down on the couch and like kind of looking at my code. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, can I just like sleep right now?
Sometimes I have dreams of like going out in the woods, just being a farmer, just being like, I help people, but I don't feel like I'm really helping people. I want to like make cabbages and go into town and be like, yes, here is food. I'm the farmer guy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just like
Yeah.
I wanna reject modernity and return to farmer. That's what I
just
want.
don't send any packages in the mail that no one would want. Okay.
Yeah.
But I sometimes I think about that, but then I actually remember the time I was like on a farm or like hauling collard greens for a farmer, and that stuff is not fun. Like after doing it, it makes me like, oh boy, thank God I'm a desk jockey.
Yeah, like at my job, we're kind of small, so sometimes like, hey Jeff, our testing site here in Jax just shut down. Can you like come and move the stuff from the truck? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then it's like an entire U-Haul full of shit, and it's like, here is the COVID testing machine, weighs like 200 pounds, carry it up to the 3rd floor. We did that for like 4 hours, and oh my God, I suffered. Yeah, that was not fun. Afterwards, I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy I sit at a desk all day. Because carrying that stuff was not fun. Not fun.
I feel like what would be nice is just that we have like, half the day we're at the desk, maybe in the morning, and then the other half we're like doing something like moving our bodies. Because really, I wouldn't mind doing my job if I just had to like cut the bloat of the time I need to be on a desk. Or just standing in one place, and I can like interact with people or do other things.
Like I could do my job from home. I have to go to an office for it, and I don't know why. Almost no other like recruiting thing because you go to the office. This one does for some reason.
Yeah, I don't. That's the thing I'm a little bit confused about too.
Yeah, it's weird. And then we worked like 9-hour shifts when really it's more on and off labor. Like you make calls, and then you just have to wait for the person to call you back. And you can call more people, sure, but eventually you run out of candidates.
Okay.
So I work maybe 4 hours a day, 4 or 5 hours maybe. The other hours are just sitting around and looking busy when my boss comes over. He's like, hey Jeff, how's that site going? And I'm like, it's going good, I got 2 people. He's like, we need 4, get on it. And I'm like, okay, sure. And then again, I'm like, well, I've called everyone I can. I guess I can text this person and be like, hey, did you see my message I sent 3 hours ago? Because they're probably at work, It just like, it doesn't make sense a lot of the times, but that's because I think this company is run weird. But, that's why I kind of want to get into HR. So like, I could sit around and send emails and call people, sure, but also get up and walk around someone's office and be like, hey, how's it going? And that's literally my job. It's just gonna be like, hey, how are you okay? Are you gonna sue the company? Hello? And also like I want to help them out. Like, oh yeah, my wife just died. And I'm like, oh sorry man, you want to talk about it? And we're like, no, I don't like HR people. You're all scum. And I'm like, true. And then you get out of there.
Oh God, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so, but then eventually I want to be a professor and everything, and that's fun because I get to pace around a room. So, yeah, but that's when I'm old, like 40. Okay. I'm sure anyone around 40 is like, that's not old. It's old to me.
I feel like, for me, it's old because, like,
that's like double my lifespan, yeah.
Yeah, you're halfway through your life right there. I feel like
most people live to like 80, 90,
I feel like I will be probably gone between like 65, 75. So I'm kind of like, once I hit like 30, that's like my midlife crisis.
I'm gonna live to like 90, and then they're gonna find immortality, and I will literally murder someone to get it. I'm like, no, let me get it. I don't want to die.
Okay, well, now I want to know why immortality. Like, what do you think is?
I don't want permanent immortality. I just want a couple extra 100 years. Okay.
You see,
I want to see everything, then die.
Okay, so for me, I think I am of the opinion that longer lifespans would be great, and I would like the ability to not die because of natural consequences, like, you know, my organs and my body just gives up on me. It's like, I had enough, boy, peace. I wanted to be like, if I die, it's like, oh no, he tripped and fell and you know,
instantly cracked his neck, you know, and died.
Yeah, like, or like, oh no, he fell from the roof. He was trying to fix the gutter or whatever. That's an okay way. It sucks, but it's like, you know, he was already getting up there, and it's not like I had anything controlling that. Like, it was completely by chance. That would be nice, but I'm not. At the same time, I kind of am at the point where I'm like, living forever wouldn't be great, and living or like digital immortality.
Oh yeah.
I'm more like sus about that either. Like, you know, I don't know how I'd feel putting like an AI copy of me to live, or in the metaverse or whatever. Like, like it doesn't sound interesting to me.
There's really two forms of immortality that are semi-achievable within like the next couple 100 years. There's mutation and cybernetics. Which one would you prefer? Because mutations, we're currently looking at things like lobsters are functionally like immortal, because there's the reason we die of old age, and reason like me and you in a few years will be done aging, and then we will slowly just die. But lobsters get to that peak, and their cells are so good at perfectly replicating each other, they never age. We age because our cells just get shit. But you would have to be injected and become like, get the lobster DNA in you to become immortal. Would you prefer that, or would you prefer, I am a cyborg now and I can't physically die?
So here's the thing, I want both.
True. Transhumanism is cool, but not like, too far.
Yeah, like I said it long and before for like the past decade that I wouldn't mind swapping out some of my body parts for robot stuff, like robot ankles or robot legs. You know,
fix the stuff that breaks easily. You know, like the stuff like evolution fucked up. You know, like the human foot is a disaster area. Give me a better one.
Yeah, like that sounds fun. You know, I'm sure.
Or give both of us better eyes so we don't have to wear this. You know.
Yeah, that's great. You know, I don't even need all of them. Just fix one permanently and make the other one like, you know, robotic, or give me a third eye.
Yeah, like no, yeah. It's like you can keep the glasses, but you have one that opens up and it's like heat vision. That'd be bomb. And then and then give me new ears, because you know my eardrums blew up a couple years back, and it still sucks. Like I'm still constantly in pain from loud noises. Give me new ones because I can't grow them. So
yeah, no, I think I would. It's one of those things, like if there was an actual case for like functional immortality, where it's like, okay, you can basically live for forever as long as no accidents happens or murder, I would take that. That's worth putting my life savings, because I can just live longer to earn the new savings.
And then eventually, when you're like 600, like, okay, I'm done. And then you just like go to a doctor and are like, okay, you're cool. The immortality juice is off. You have like 2
1
months.
year left.
You know, like a year. Yeah, this is your final year. You know, and it's like, damn.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Like, damn. All right. Because I do think like death means something for like life.
Yeah.
Because I remember hearing something, and that, you know, I had to have someone fact check me on this, but there was the idea that I know some cells, or like maybe not cells, but some forms of life don't die. Like you said, like they just are really good at replicating at a very microscopic level, or like single cell organisms. They just keep on going forever. But I think the reason that we die is so that way we can reproduce. Because otherwise, then there's no incentive for us, because then the cells will just like maybe mess up, or they're just not good at reproduction and trying to find the version of themselves, so they, you know, keep the same problems or whatever. But I would like the ability to just get like the lobster DNA, genetic engineering. I talked to people in that, and they said it's going to be one of the things that people are going to, go for in the future. And I agree, like designer babies where you can like give your kid the ability to never die or for a very long time not have to die. I would do that.
I'd pay as much money as I could, yeah.
Yeah, or like, robot stuff. Ideally, this wouldn't be in a situation where you have to pay like your whole life or more to get it, but
hopefully we live in a Star Trek future where everything's
where it's
good.
it's just like democratically decided.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, everyone obviously wants to live for a very long time without being forced to die of disease. Of course, we're going to give this out for free.
Yeah.
I would hope I grow old to be in a society that does that.
Like, even if we don't get immortality, I want when I'm old and dying, like on my deathbed with my like grandkids around me, have the idea like looking at the stuff happening today, these grandkids, them or their kids are gonna live in that bright future, like something greater that we helped make is for them. And I think every generation feels that, but no, I don't think any generation before us has had this rapid of technological progress,
Oh yeah, I was just thinking about that today. Like, I just bought a SSD, like a external hard drive, and then it's all USB Type C. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, I just bought 250 gigabytes of hard drive for like less than $40, and it's on a new cable. This cable never existed 10 years ago. When I was like 11, the most we had was the micro USB that connects from your Android phone to the computer.
Yeah.
But now we have this super fast thing. The data is cheap. Like 250 means nothing. Like it's cheap to get. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this like the amount of technology is just rapidly changing. Like before, smartphones were just like the hot new business, and now everyone's like, yo, this is kind of lame. I'm looking forward to AR.
like VR and stuff, Yeah. Like I remember when I was a kid, my first phone was a flip phone. And I'd like Earthworm Jim and like Minesweeper, and I was like, oh my god, this is the pinnacle of 3,000 years of human history. And now I'm like,
Snake.
And now I look at my phone like, damn, this thing sucks. Like it's bad. And then I'm like, oh, VR is cool. Like I played VR games with some of my friends, and we played Phasmophobia, and it was a spooky ghost game, and I was terrified. One, because I couldn't wear my glasses, so it was a blurry, scary ghost game.
Oh, that's even worse.
And two, because they're like, Jeff, go in the house. It wants you. And I'm like, oh shit! I'm going in with my flashlight and like, hello, Mary Jackson, are you here? And then like a door opens in front of me, like, and I sprint out the house, and they're like, it was right behind you. But you're in VR, so it feels like you trick your little monkey brain into thinking you're there, and it was like, it makes me wonder, like, damn, in like 100 years, they're gonna have like the holodeck from Star Trek. I know I'm making a lot of Star Trek references. I've been watching
it. Star Trek's like the better future.
Out
there compared to like Star Wars or something like that.
Or even Dune and other sci-fi,
Well, Dune's like post-apocalyptic.
It's actually not. As someone who's read the book, it's not. It's just feudalistic, which is worse.
We evolved from feudal, like that's
okay. The Dune world goes from our current world back to feudalism. Okay, the bad ending.
It is the bad ending. It's like, I feel like techno-feudalism, which I've been reading about more at least recently, is definitely a thing I see coming on the horizon.
That's a possibility.
And the biggest, it's something that I definitely see going, like, unless something drastic happens, which I don't think will. It's going to happen because we already have company towns being revived again, and like Amazon and like Facebook building cities in the Arizona desert. So I'm not surprised it's happening. Like getting away from like the weird legality stuff about it. You can basically have like kings and counts. And this is actually one thing like I kind of realized now that I work into like technologies that a lot of the profits or a lot of the costs in tech is a lot of rent-seeking behaviors that do cut down on costs, mind you. but like AWS, which is one of the backbone providers of like the internet at large, they basically get paid to host a lot of very expensive and fancy computers that can host my apps and websites all across the web. But essentially, they're like a landlord. Like, hey, you get to use all this fancy hardware and service. In exchange, you pay me rent based off of when you use it or for as long as you use it. Like, of course, this makes sense. It's like it's already built into like the net of things being more based on this kind of, land and gentry kind of behavior. And like, to be honest, it makes sense too, because I don't see, I mean, you can do it. Technically you can. But most people, if I were to tell them, hey, go host a website, they're not going to think, let me buy a spare computer from Best Buy, plug it into my router or plug it into like my stuff so I can set up the firewall and the capabilities, call my internet service provider, Comcast or AT&T or whoever, and tell them I'd like a special address that directs me to this computer I have, so that way everyone in the world can come see my little website or my little app. Like, no one's really going to do that.
They're going to go like to Weebly or Squarespace or some site that has them do it for them. Yeah.
Who rents from a guy who has a giant data server and a giant data center across different continents. That way it's always available. So it's like, yeah, of course it's going to be centralized. It's going to be like this kind of behavior. So I can see techno-feudalism happening. And what I think of Dune as like, a little dystopic. Like it sounds terrible, but I haven't fully finished it. So mind you, there's still things I need to go through. But even the initial premise, reading the couple chapters I did, sounded like, wow, this is sad. Like sad ending for humanity.
We just need to encounter the Vulcans, bro, and then everything will be cool. We'll be fine. We'll have Spock. He's cool. What's it called? But yeah, it's definitely a possibility. And sure, that could happen. I think it's mostly because it's what we're used to, Humans have lived in essentially a feudalistic setting since we've settled down and started farming.
Yeah, I think we've been doing that for like the past
3,
almost
4,
10,
5... Not
like
10,000, yeah. Well,
it's been 11,000 years more or less.
Well, that's more so when humans have been on the world stage. When we really settled down and got agrarian was like 5,000-6,000 years ago. Because like 10,000 years ago would have been like hunter-gatherer type stuff.
Okay, then what about when was like Mesopotamia then? Was that like 6,000 or like 5,000 BC?
When was, because Sumer was like the first civilization ever. 4,000 to 5,000 BCE. So that's like 6,000 years ago.
Okay, so for the past 6,000 years, we've been running with the same mode of production and government for just like slave societies or landed people on.
What's the difference?
Yeah, and then recently we had capitalism,
which is just kind of an evolution of previous systems.
Well, I mean, yeah, everything's an evolution of a previous system. But like, it's definitely different for sure. And then we had like socialist experiments and fascist experiments, and
eventually one of them is going to win, because this system we're in will not last forever.
Or it can go backward. I feel like
that's also a possibility.
Actually,
it's not really backwards. It's more like a remix.
Is fascism like technically? Is fascism similar to feudalism? I don't think it is. I think they're distinct.
I think the like reverence for the leader is really similar to like the divine right of kings.
That doesn't really mean much.
Like if you look at like China, for example, the emperor was divine. He was the son of heaven. Blah 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 blah. But also the Chinese like murdered their emperor quite often when they're like, oh, God doesn't like you anymore. Die, and then they put a new guy in. Well, with fascism, it's like it's such a hero worship. It's like a cult of personality. It's different than the old ways, but it's just like a further progression of the base idea that we should have one person lead us.
I don't think that really has like the main like. I don't think that really describes it. I think it's more of like...
And also fascism is kind of self-defeating in that when they run out of enemies, they turn on themselves and fall apart. It doesn't... Like feudalism is stable. Feudalism, as long as the peasants... as long as you keep the peasants down, you'll run forever.
Right.
Fascism eventually runs out of enemies until you have to look inwards and go, actually, you're the enemy now, until eventually everyone's dead. That's just kind of what happens with fascism, unless you try to mix it with old feudalistic ideas, in which
So
case
basically, fascism just becomes feudalism. It's the only
fascism
to maintain
becomes
the relationship.
something else if it wants to survive.
So okay, so that's the only way. Because
Okay.
I was say, like, I feel like fascism seemed like a trans. It seems like a different stage, but it's definitely.
It's like it's like the shitty transitory state to some other form of government.
Okay.
Where just a lot of people die. And they can either like be like, oh, we're fascist, let's go left wing. Oh cool, we've got like North Korea. We're fascist, let's go right wing. Oh, we've got like banana republics. Oh cool, we're fascist, let's go back. Oh cool, we're feudal again. I'm trying to think of like I don't know, like warlords. Like
I was
African
about to say,
warlords.
like, really, the one thing I could think of is like, you have a fascist dictator, and then they took out everyone they could think of, but their power base splinters, and then they go into a warlord society because the main state has collapsed, and then you just have a bunch of feudal warlords, and that just stays there in perpetuity, as long as they don't encroach on each other's.
Which will eventually happen.
Yeah. So I feel like it just cycles. It doesn't really break out of its
Until like you've had warring states periods in a lot of things history. Like again, China, like their big warring state period between the three main factions. I'm forgetting their names, but eventually one of them comes on top and goes, "Okay, we're gonna make some reforms, but we're still basically feudal. It's just we're gonna make sure nobody else can try to kill us." And then eventually somebody kills them and they move on. Until you get the next government, because humans suck and they don't know how to change. And even with like republics, which were a huge idea, like the Enlightenment was like crazy. You end up with governments like we see in most of the world, where it's like, yeah, we are democratic, but also like, how many times has a Clinton or a Bush been president? Like
yeah.
the people with money and the people with power still control things. It's just they're keeping the peasants in line by letting them think they run it.
I actually don't agree with that. For the idea that it's not really a republic for the peasants, because if that were the case, then there wouldn't be so much dynastic problems, and you wouldn't have the contention between the two different classes of the ruling elite and the peasants. I think republics to me makes sense as a democracy of the elites, or instead of them.
So like an oligarchy.
Yeah, I mean it's oligarchy. Yeah, but that doesn't really get to the point, because the oligarchy can be a bunch of nobles that will always stay there. But I feel like republics, you still have your oligarchic, you have your aristocrats, but there's more social mobility where you could have like, a peasant, maybe not a peasant, but like a merchant become a noble, and then that noble could have some connections or have a son or a daughter, and then they become another higher noble, which could maybe take us a chance at being democratically elected by the other nobles for a chance at power. I think that's like a democracy of those interests, because in the end they're the ones who actually have the keys to power. They actually have the control over production, they have the control over communications, weapons, violence, etc. What the peasants have is like collective violence if they wanted to use it, and collective ability to withhold production. But it just takes a lot of education and coordination that's really hard to see unless you push them to it.
Yeah, and I'd say this is distinctly modern in that regard. Because,
Well, why would you say that?
I don't know. I just don't feel like this kind of... The only thing I can think this system has been kind of done before was the Roman Republic with the plebeians and the patricians. With the two different systems where the plebeians still... Do you know how the Roman Senate worked?
I'm not too familiar. The only thing I do know is that there was the House of Representatives was kind of based off the plebeians.
Yes.
Form. Yeah, and then the Senate was like the actual oligarchs, patricians.
Yeah.
This is our real government.
Yeah. Where the plebs had their own house. I'm blanking on the name right now. It's been a while since I've looked at the Roman government, but and they had to fight for that, by the way, because before it was just the Senate with the patricians, until the plebs went, you know what? You're not representing us. There's 10,000 of us, and you might have 1,000 soldiers and 100 of you guys, but you can't kill all of us. And then the leaders were like, damn, we can't kill all of them. Okay, give them what they want, but make it shitty. And that's what they did, and it was pretty shitty. But essentially, like, all these noble families, because there were nobles, like Caesar's family and everything, they would get put into the Senate because they were of a noble family, and they'd have to work their way up, like, through the meritocracy. And that was a good part of it, people who were actually, like, good at their job usually got to the top. But that also was bad, because you get people like Caesar to the top and goes, okay, I'm better than all of you. I'm taking your power now. And they're like, oh shit, what are we gonna do? All the soldiers love him. Oh no, he's a dictator. Oh no, we're dead. Because that system eventually failed because there was so much political infighting between the noble families and different parties within it that it just splintered because one strong man came along and went, okay, I'm gonna seize power and essentially like a fascist takeover. And then the system fell apart, and it makes me think about our modern system and how that's probably how it's going to die eventually, sooner or later.
Perhaps.
It just makes me worry because our system of government seems directly based on something that's already failed, and it doesn't seem like we're trying to fix it. I mean, you could fix it in one of two ways. You can make it more stable by giving more power to the aristocrats, and essentially just going back to feudalism, which sucks. Or you could stabilize it by trying to go full democracy, which is more volatile, but at least, like, you'll probably stick together. But that's more of untested ground, though. Like, nobody's really done, like, pure democracy,
I think that when it comes to this period, one of the things I've been thinking about it for the past 2 years, because with a lockdown, not even with lockdown, but with just a pandemic, you just have a lot more time. And I guess just because I was afforded that because of a student. But I do think that it's heading in a similar direction. The question, I think, is I'm not too sure how competent or how things will go regarding administration. I think there's a good chance it could just like be like a warring states kind of era. That could happen in the future. But I do agree with you, mean it's like your base it's another experiment, mind you, but it's based off of a failed experiment. So you have to keep in mind that there's going to be some recurring patterns that just have to be addressed. I have my idea of how things will go, but I won't talk in too much detail about it. What I will say is that I do think it's interesting what you think about this. And I do think in some degree that the only way for like people, like common people, to kind of get out, or like maybe not to get out, but just kind of do fine, is to either become like in a class of like a noble, which is really, really hard to do and statistically unlikely, or to just like emigrate out into like a more stable area. Because it seems like a predestinated ending.
I don't necessarily think so. I think like you look at something like the French Revolution, and that kind of gives me hope. As in, like, these peasants were literally so oppressed that like a lot of them didn't know how to read, and yet they still rose up and destroyed feudalism, and then brought it back with Napoleon, French Revolution. Yeah. But like, I don't think the only choice is to join or leave. I think if enough people like cared, I'm about to quote Dr. Seuss. It's like, if people cared enough and enough, blah blah blah, like the Lorax type. I'm forgetting the quote, but something like that. But like, I think if people really banded together and tried to change things, not necessarily even in a violent fashion, like the 2021, if you get movements of that size for changes you want to see, I think you could try doing something. I mean, sure, the people in power are gonna resist you, but you know, they just like what the old Roman senators had. They can't get rid of all of you. They can't kill everybody.
Here's the thing that I would say, like, I agree with you. Like, you know, if enough people coordinate together, something revolutionary could occur. And I would, you know, that would be nice, for sure. Maybe it might be different, who knows. But the thing that I think about is automation and military automation. Like, look at, like, stuff that's been going on from Lockheed and, like, the work that's been done in Israel of, like, the military developing drones and weaponized robots to suppress masses. And I think that is the new game changer for me, where you could have automatic use of force without the need of human control, outside of like the key interests that have no, you know, qualms about of deploying those weapons. So that's what I would say concerns me the most and interests me.
Yeah.
Because unless there's a proper response to that, it's a real toss-up. But I'm going to lean more into the side of it would probably be an aristocrats win, or whoever takes up the mantle in the same interest of the aristocrats, because of those forces. Because of just how further along the tech tree we are. Take this, like, you know, any time before, we still have weapons that, although they can fire somewhat automatically without a lot of effort, you still need a person to be there at the source of violence, or you could, you know, influence that. A robot, you just have to find the weakness, kick it, and break it, or like dodge it, but it will just go about its programming.
I actually agree with you on that, but I think you're not seeing something, which is the fact that I think that sort of system will end in the infighting. Like aristocrats and nobles and like elites will never be happy with each other. Sure, they'll band together to keep the poors down, but they still hate each other. So I would see eventually you would see them fighting, and they would use their own weapons to destroy or at least weaken each other, to where the opportunistic lower classes could do something about it, or nuclear war would happen and the whole slate just gets wiped clean and we can try again.
Again, sure.
Yeah, see in 20,000 years when human civ is back to like the Stone Age, you know. Yes. Well, I think humans are like cockroaches. You can't get rid of us.
Who's the real misanthrope here?
Listen, I hate people, but I have hope that they can be good. Listen, there's the philosophical debate: are humans born inherently good or evil? I say both, baby. I'm a centrist in that regard. What? So I know the centrism of, do you think humans are evil or not? I'm like, both, maybe both.
I mean, I don't really care. I'm just kind of, I'm apathetic. You're
not even engaged in the fight. Apolitical looking ass. What's it called? But yeah, like I don't think humanity. I think humanity's future is going to have dark moments for sure. I mean, looking at the world today, there's definitely a storm coming. But you know, every storm's got to end eventually, and I think hopefully we're smart enough to try to make something better afterwards.
So the thing for me is that I always thought about like, okay, like it's going to be a storm up and coming. I guess maybe it's just a function of anxiety that I have. But I do think about like, well, is there a way to like, you know, sidestep it? Like unless I necessarily want to confront something, I'd rather just try to see if there's a way to like move about it or disengage. Because 9 times out of 10, engaging is just not worth the effort. It's also just more costly. So
I mean that's true of like animals like fighting in nature. Like if you look evolutionary, like why would you fight when you can just run away? Like you'll live longer. It's not worth it.
Run away or cooperate with someone else.
Yeah,
like, that's how I see it. But I guess for this, just to end it off, I'm kind of gonna say that I won't expect good things to happen on a macro level, but I don't think that this means that at an individual level, people can't find their own sense of happiness or things that they can do to make life easier for them. And that's where I have my work to do to ensure that I can do that, and for other people I care about can do that. Because I feel like there is just a very limited amount. I think I remember when we were younger, we're like, oh, we're going to try to change the world, do our best. But now I'm kind of like, I do want to help out where I can. But I understand that things are just larger than me. And I'm perfectly content with understanding that, because it's not like it was on my responsibility. I shouldn't give myself that much stress to begin with.
Yeah, like I think on the macro level, things probably aren't going to be great in the coming future. Mm-hmm. But like humans are really hardy creatures, and we've lived through worse. Like there have been like the Black Plague and constant wars, and like we live in a fairly good time of history.
Oh yeah, for sure. But it's kind of like you're about to hit the down part.
Yeah,
like, I feel like we're at that point.
You're at the plateau.
It's like being on the roller coaster where I was like, wow, things have been going up pretty good, man. And it's like, things are gonna get rocky up ahead.
I mean, but people also thought that in like 1905, right before World War One. Like Europe had been in peace since Napoleon died. And they're like, we've had 60 years of peace, and now here we go, big wartime. And the next century was like shit. But now it's like, look where we are now. They were at their peak. They fell hard, and now they're higher than before. Humans rebound.
No, yeah, but that's what I'm trying to say. Is like I'm aware, and you're aware that we're at that point. So for me, it's just kind of thinking, who are the people that were able to just get away with this, like chilling, like unscathed, or more or less not bothered by the events that occurred.
I don't think anyone was unbothered. I think it's just that humans are really good at coping. Just like learning to live with it, like me, like with the pain of my ears, because loud sounds really are painful to me. It sucked when my ears are first like this, but it's been a couple of years. I'm just kind of used to the pain in my ears at this point. And like the doctor says, like, yeah, your ears will just be like that forever, unless you get the like surgeries done. And I'm like, well, I don't have the money for surgeries, so I just learned to live with it. I just cope with it. And like people will learn to live with the pain of like, oh, we don't have food again because the government went to war with East Asia. Okay, cool. And then just deal with it. Humans are hardy in that way, for better and for worse. But I think this sort of attitude of like accepting the defeat will only make it worse. So if you're watching Tangent Podcast, try to help with little you can in the ocean of despair and misery. You could be a little light shining in the dark for people around you.
Yeah, donate some groceries or something.
Donate some groceries. Be kind to people you meet. Try to set an example for those around you, and help change you want to see in the world. As long as it's not bad change, which anything I say is bad is what's really bad, because I'm the moral arbiter of the universe.
It's true. Meanwhile.
Listen, I found my own religion over this time we've been gone, and I invented it myself, okay? You're all me, and I'm all you. The universe is God, and everything within it is part of one greater being, okay? We're all connected. You and me are one small part of a greater being, just like everyone else living.
Crap, okay. I'm not going to go too deep. But there was something that you just touched on. I have this kind of like sense of like people are the spirituality that they seek, like they're the gods that they look for. Like I have this like idea. I don't know why this message is in my head, but there's a message that just says, "Man is God and God is man," and
that's what I think.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I feel like it makes most sense, because it's like, if you want to understand why things are crappy, you just think man is God and God is man. It's like, oh, man is flawed, and man is God. So not everything is going to be like peachy and roses, but there's some good things about it. So I'm like, okay, That's good.
Yeah, and
That's
like
fine.
it fits in with like, why does God let bad things happen? Because I'm part of God, and I sometimes make bad things happen because I'm not perfect. Therefore,
Right.
God is also flawed because I'm God, and so is that mouse over there, and so is that tree. We're all part of it. You know, one giant living organism that is the universe, unconsciously joined together in perfect harmony.
And this makes me think of one thing. If man is God and God is man, we're all of it, then why does it hurt itself? Like, do we hate ourselves so much still?
Because we don't know that we're one, man. I sound like a hippie, but like we don't know that we're all part of one living universe. And also just because like maybe like we're living like this so we could understand good and bad things, like maybe the lesson of your life is like the good and the bad, and when you return to the collective unconscious that is the universe, that is God, you like teach it something about itself, so maybe at the end of time when the last star burns out, we can fully ascend as one being into a real God and make a new universe. I don't know, man. Again. Yeah, and not like do it again, but be like, okay, I'm gonna make another God, and they're gonna do what I did. Classic human shit, Classic human shit instead of going, I can create another God right now. It's like, no, I'm gonna make them suffer like I did. Classic human behavior.
Oh, like that would make sense.
Yeah, and then there's our actual God Dad out there who came before us and did this because he was human too. Because it's all everything.
Yeah,
yeah. They're like, yep, they're progressing. They've got 12 billion more years to go.
12 billion? That seems quick.
I don't. When the hell will the last star burn out?
That sounds pretty good, honestly.
Will the universe end? It'll end in 22 billion years. Is the possible earliest, but it could be 20 to 30. So we don't know.
12 billion years. Like, okay, I think I understand now.
Yeah, it's like, yes, I've experienced everything. Oh God, that there you go. That's Religion with Jeffrey. That's mine. Welcome. If you're interested, look up pantheism. Really cool.
Pantheism?
Yeah, P-A-N theism.
Okay.
It's really cool. Unfortunately, there's not a lot on it, but its symbol is cool because it's like either the universe or a nautilus shell. It's cool. Yeah. Anyhow, we've been streaming for like an hour 15, so this is about how long it's going to be. I know it did not feel like that because it's been so long, but we should do this next week. I probably would prefer to do this on Sunday nights if that's okay with you, or no?
I can do this probably Sunday nights. Yeah, we can do it.
Okay. Because I get home from work at like 6, so I don't really get much time if we do it on a weekday. So
that makes sense. So Sunday night, see you then.
Yep. Well, thanks for coming to the Tangent Podcast. The return is what we called the episode. So welcome back.
I'm gonna search up pantheism. I learned a new thing today.
Yeah, it's really cool. Make sure to come back next week. Hopefully, we should do this next week. If we don't, physically harass us in real life. Don't.
Please don't.
You don't even know where he lives anymore. He doesn't live in Jacksonville.
Yes. So that's all we need to know.
So, anyhow, thanks for coming and watching the Tangent Podcast. Hope you have a great day and a great week. And be kind to one another. Because you are the other. And you are you. You are all. You are God. Act like it, motherfucker. See ya.
Peace.
How do I end this? There it is. Bye.
Bye.
Yay!